Playing without looking at your hands or with your eyes shut is a really helpful thing to practice. So I want to give you some ideas and exercises on exactly how you can work on this. And this is really helpful for anyone learning piano, whether you're learning to read or not, but it's going to be especially helpful if you're learning to sight read. The main benefit of this is that it's going to help you develop a much stronger sense of feel and spatial awareness at the piano, which is really helpful even for when you can also look at your hands again. Essentially, this is going to help you find the right notes much more accurately when you're moving around and playing. You're learning to keep a strong mental image of the keyboard in mind and exactly where your fingers are, where each hand is at all times, and that's really important. So the main thing to do, something I think that's good to do fairly regularly, is to practice without looking something that you're already quite familiar with. So it's good to do this with pieces or sections of pieces or sections of songs that you're working on, but also exercises that you've got on the go and also scales as well. Now, the key is to not start off by trying to do it with something that's already challenging to play. Start off with things that are already quite comfortable to play and try not to include things that have big leaps in at the beginning as well, because they're more difficult to do without looking when you first start. Of course, over time, once you start to get used to it, you then want to challenge yourself, try harder material, try and incorporate some things that maybe have some bigger position changes in as well. It's good to try and do hands separately if it's too hard to do both hands at the same time, and then you can try and put your hands together once you get each hand comfortable. What you can do is you can look to get your hands in the starting position for whatever you're about to play, or you can try the next thing on the list. Do let me know in the comments down below, are you learning to read as well? Are you planning on learning to read, or is that not something you want to do? It would be interesting to hear from you and what your kind of main goals are. And also, just quickly, if this video is useful at all, then it's really helpful for the channel if you could click the like button. Thank you. So the next thing is finding either individual notes or your starting positions for whatever you're about to play from nothing. And you can try this hands separately and at some point hands together too. So the way that we do this is look away from the keyboard, just move your hand around a little bit so it gets lost. And then we need to orient ourselves as to where we are. So we're going to do that the exact same way that we do by looking. But this time you're going to feel around instead for the set of 3 black keys and the set of 2 black keys. So let's say you're trying to find the note G. You're going to fish around trying to find the set of 3 black keys by feel. And the more you do this, you'll find you'll get quicker at it. And then as you're doing it, you're kind of forcing yourself to keep a picture of the layout of the keyboard in your mind as you move around, which is really important. So now we've got those. You're after the note G. We know it's in between these two. So there's your G. And you can find any of the white notes by feeling where they sit amongst the black keys as well. And you can try this with chords too. So first, just find the starting note of the chord. So there's your G, and let's say we want to try and play a G minor chord. So you've got to try and imagine that in your head and try and picture and feel the spacing under your fingers and then try and play it. I really like this next exercise, and I do this with my students who are learning to sight read, but it's a really helpful and effective thing to do anyway. So beginner sight reading exercises often start off by learning to play and read something in just one hand position. So there's a couple of things we have to get right to do that. We have to read the note correctly, but then also you have to find the correct note on the piano without looking. So you have to stay aware of which finger is on which note. So let's say the hand position was the first 5 notes of G major, for example. You can try this in all sorts of hand positions as well. Now, you're reading the notes and you're not looking, so you've really got to imagine G, A, B, C, D in your head. And of course, you may be doing this with both hands and they may be in 2 separate positions. So you kind of got to imagine 2 things at the same time. Now, to practice this, what I do is I get the student in the position that the exercise is going to be in. I just call out random letters and they can't look and they've got to play it. So you can do that with yourself or get someone to help you. So just call out a C A, D, B. Now, if that seems too easy for you, make it harder. Try and do it with both hands at the same time and try less familiar positions. And of course, you can also try changing positions as well. This next one is really great for lifting and moving hand positions and really getting a feel for the distance that you're moving on the piano and staying accurate. So all we're going to do is we're going to start off with just finger 2 and play C. And we're going to practice jumping further and further back and forth from that C, just on the white keys. So we're going to go a second to start with. A second is just next door on the white keys here like this. A second up, back to C, a second down. Do that for a little while until it feels easy and accurate. And of course, you're not meant to be looking at what you're doing. Now this one won't be too bad for most people, I don't think. And once that starts to get comfortable and you do that accurately, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 times in a row, then you try it with thirds. So you jump a third up, back to C, a third down and back to C, a third up, like this. And then of course you can try a fourth above and a fourth below. And then of course you just gradually expand. Maybe at some point you can get up to an octave, but there's certainly no rush to be able to do that. You don't need to get there in one practice session either. Come back to this and do it different times. If you aren't sure that you're getting it right, have a few goes whilst looking, and that might help you warm up to the feel of the distance anyway. But then you can hear what it sounds like. Let's say a fourth. You get used to what that should sound like. Once you've got that in your head, you'll kind of know whether you've done something different or whether you've matched that sound. You can also try this in your left hand. I wouldn't bother doing hands together with this. And you can also try this with different fingers. So each of your 5 fingers you can try this with. And if you want, you could practice trying to switch fingers as well. You can also try this starting from different notes as well. Perhaps you could do it in a major scale that has some black keys in and try and land on them as well if you want more of a challenge. The next thing's a little bit more general because honestly there's endless things that you could practice like this. So my advice is to take something that's important for you specifically to work on, something that you think you're going to use a lot. So something that I think that comes up a lot would be octaves. Let's say octaves in your left hand. Let's say you look at your first starting spot C. You could do that and then try and find, without looking, the octave above with your thumb. Move up a half step. Try and find the next one. And so on. And we often put the 5th in between in our left hand as well. So maybe you could do that as well. So root 5th octave like this without looking. Just target things that you think are important to you to practice, that you want to work on and get a better feel for. Something like octaves we do use a lot, so that would be a really good one to get more automatic, so you can at least find the top note just by feel. Just a couple of quick-fire things that are going to be more challenging to think about down the road. Something that's hard is big leaps on the piano, so maybe it's a kind of low note up to a chord position. That's a really good thing to work on by itself. Maybe just moving around chord positions in the right hand, different chord progressions. And of course, any kind of patterns that you're learning as well. Maybe left hand patterns or rhythm patterns between your hands. And finally, as I was planning this video, I noticed that Piano Lab, another piano channel, posted a short about practicing without looking, and he made a couple of great points too.
The first reason is it helps me focus in on my sense of hearing. This really helps me dial in my interpretation. I can focus in on each individual phrase. I can focus on any subtleties of tone production that I might miss because I'm so focused on the score or my hands. The other reason I like to do this is it really helps me focus on my kinesthetic sense. If there's any tension anywhere in my body, I will tend to notice it more because I'm really focusing on how I feel when I play.
I highly recommend checking out Piano Lab for some really in-depth technique tutorials. I hope that was helpful, guys. Check out a link below to the website for some helpful PDFs on chords and scales, all the finger numbers, things like that. The more familiar you are with that kind of stuff, the easier it is to learn new things on the piano. And you should check out this video next. It's a 3-step technique tutorial on how to lift and move around to change chords better and more accurately. I know that's something that's tough for beginners to get to grips with. Thanks for watching.